Good evening and welcome to Real Talk with Sean, everybody. This afternoon, I have the pleasure of speaking with Miss Iva Ballou, who was born with a craniofacial disability, which is a cleft palate and lip. How you doing? And thank you so much for joining me today, Iva. I appreciate you.
Hi, Sean. I am so happy to be here, and thank you to the audience for listening. And I'm ready for this talk. Audience, we tried to keep some of it. You're already fired up, ready to go. So y'all gonna have to catch up a little bit, just a little bit.
Yeah, we've already started, y'all. I mean, listen, I feel like I've already known her for a while. Were you born with the cleft palate and lip?
Yes, I was. In fact, my mother always likes to tell me one of the stories about when she was pregnant with me, of that her body literally tried to, I guess you would say, like abort me about 3 times. So the first time, it was right after she had found out that, yes, she was pregnant with me, it was a girl, and that it was around the 18 weeks that she found out that, oh, she's going to be born with the cleft. They didn't know the severity. And she said about two to 3 weeks later, she had the most extreme pain that she'd ever had and a little bit of bleeding. So that was happened, and it happened 2 more times. Then when I was born, now this part might have been me. I probably was doing too much in the womb. I was breech and I had the cord wrapped around my neck.
Okay.
So I was doing a lot. I was ready.
Yes, you were.
I was ready to come out. I still
turning.
right. And so then they could see the severity, and it was a bilateral cleft lip and palate. And so what that means for the audience that has never heard of that or experienced that or seen it, what that means is for my lips, I had 2 openings, so left and right. So that makes it the bilateral for my lip. And then for my palate, for the listeners at this moment, think of eating peanut butter. You know, it gets stuck to the roof of your mouth. That is your palate. Imagine being born with no palate. So that was me. Okay. And so it was a pretty big hole. So with that, I've had around 20 corrective surgeries. Most of them were cosmetic because just really wanting to fit in and to appear normal. Yeah. And something else that like most people don't know is mine actually goes all the way up to my eye, which goes into a condition called Peter's anatomy. So I am blind out of my left eye, and I wear a cosmetic lens.
What is it called?
It's called Peter's anatomy.
Okay.
And what it means is that basically my cornea was not fully developed, and there's like a white cast over it. And that's the thing. I have friends who have been friends with me years and do not know that.
Yeah, I can't tell. Like I really can't tell. So you're blind out of your left eye.
Correct.
I really could not tell that. I actually thought that was part of. So is that part of the cleft lip palate, or that's something?
What they call it is something else. It's called Peter's Plus. So what Peter's Plus is, it is the Peter's anatomy of my eye plus my cleft lip and palate. And then if you go and look at the symptoms, one of the other symptoms was short stature, which I found funny once I found that out, because my family's tall. They're all tall, like giants, giant among men. And so my dad, he was right at 5 to like barely, he just barely did not make the cut of 6 feet.
Okay.
My mom at her tallest was 5'11". My 3 older brothers, the shortest is 6'6".
Wow.
So, right. So as a little girl, I used to be 6, 7 years old sipping coffee, like, because I in my head, I was like, I can't have a cleft and be tall. I can't have both guys. Okay, I just gotta pick a struggle. I gotta pick a struggle guy. So when I found out that I actually had Peter's Plus, I was like, oh, so my 5'8", I'm actually really tall.
Wow.
I'm tall.
Right. So
syndrome.
Right. So I guess I can say 99% of people are short stature with that. Wow. That's amazing.
You would be a short stature.
Huh, I never, and see, of course I've heard of the cleft lip and palate, but I did not know what the cleft palate was. I knew what a cleft lip was. So, I'm glad that you explained what that was, because that was going to be one of my questions. And
No problem.
was there anything that your mother not did on purpose, but was there anything she did during pregnancy that can cause it? Was it something that could have been
No,
avoided?
no, and that is the thing that, in a way, this sounds strange to the listeners, I love about Cleft.
Mhm.
And like because of the fact that there is no you did this, so this is a reason why. It can be anyone, just like you. There are people who are born with cleft, who have children and have multiple children, nothing.
So it's not genetic.
So it's not always genetic.
Okay.
It's not always genetic. It's not always environmental. And the thing is, what people don't know in the US, 1 in 700 babies are born with it.
Wow. Okay. And
It's
that's a lot, actually.
It's a lot. It's one of the top 5 birth differences. I don't like to say defects. It's one of the top 5 birth differences in the US.
I like
But
that.
people don't know that.
I like that. Y'all hear that? Birth differences, not birth defects.
Yeah,
I
'cause
like
I'm not defective. I'm
that. There you go. I love that.
not defective. And we have a lot of people who don't realize. First off, Jesse Jackson has a cleft. That's why you've never seen him without a mustache. Yeah.
Never knew.
Cheech Chong has a cleft. The redhead from Pussycat Dolls
Yeah.
has a cleft.
I know.
John Bates from the Washington Commanders has a cleft. So there are clefts, big, notable, and just everyday people who are doing amazing things. We're not defective.
Exactly. Not at all. Not at all. And I know that people see when someone looks different, they automatically assume that there's something wrong upstairs in the head, but that does not mean that, and like you said, it's not a defect,
As
difference. So I like that. Now, with that being said, before I even ask the next question, rather, I want to let you know personally how strong I think you are. Because you're a very
Thank
strong
you.
woman. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're out here empowering others, whether they have a cleft lip and palate, cleft lip, or anything, just, everyday people. You're out here empowering people. And so I want to let you know that I think you're a very strong woman for standing up and helping others. So when you were young and you finally or first noticed the difference in your parents and yourself, how did that make you feel? Did you feel like something was wrong with you?
That's a tricky question to ask, because what I will say, and I have always said, and I even still do say this prayer to God, I thank Him for the parents that He gave me, because they were so equipped. So part of the cleft, and as you've already mentioned, a lot of time when people see people with differences, they want to say that they may not be as intelligent. So typically when you have a cleft, especially here in the US, you'll be given a cleft care team. And on that cleft care team, you'll meet with your doctors. That will be all of your doctors, your plastic surgeon, your speech pathologist, a social worker, ear, nose, and throat, all of your doctors. And one year when I was kind of like 5, 6, 7, they said that I was going to be slow. Now, the reason why they said that I was going to be slow is because they did a test of my recognition. One of the things that they asked that I recognized was a PB&J sandwich. I didn't recognize that. And my father was like, my child's not slow because she can't recognize a PB&J. She was like, my wife is bougie and she don't be giving her that. Like, put that on her.
Right.
And I have to say that that is one thing that I always appreciated. They always had me in the mantra of, I have a cleft, the cleft doesn't have me.
I love it.
Now, unfortunately, kids are cruel. So I would say around 7, I never felt it at home, my difference. I never ever felt it at home or with like family and friends. But it would begin to be like, okay, people are staring at me. And not as oh, she's a cute little adorable little girl. They're staring at me as something's wrong.
Right.
And then I became hyper aware of when I was being stared at. And it's funny because as I grew up and continued to go on to teens, you get really aware of when people are staring at you and how they're staring at you and what they mean by the stare. So when I would tell friends, oh, they're staring at me because of my cleft, they're like, no, I read it in your head. And then like, it was loving because I was like, oh, that's so cute. You don't see me that way. And I love you for that. But the reality is people do see my difference.
Yeah, yeah, that is true. And I do agree with what you said. You can tell the difference in the stares, which is funny because I mean they're just looking in their eyes. But I do believe you. The stares are different.
Stares are different.
Yep. And so how did that make you feel like when you would see people doing that?
So this is when I would say, and I had to name her, we all have an inner dialogue, or I assume we all have. I definitely have an inner dialogue. And I had to name her. Her name was Big Bertha. Big Bertha was loud. Big Bertha was real loud. And what Big Bertha would do is she would take every negative thing that either I actually heard or I assumed that the stares meant and would play that over and over again to me. So I think had I had never really had to deal too much with the outside world, I would have never had any issue with my cleft.
Yeah,
Truthfully. But once you go out into the world, you have to assimilate. You have to interact, and people treat you different.
they do.
And then you take on this shame. And I remember the question that I would always ask. And one time my dad, because again, I did grow up in the church, and so I was like, well, should they use that? I can ask God for anything, and He'll give it to me. That's what a kid thinks. So I was like, I'd have been praying for this to be fixed for years. I done blew out my candle on my candlestick. It ain't been fixed. maybe I just don't have the right number. So my dad heard me one time asking God like to fix it. And he sat me down. He was like, I know that you want it to be fixed. And he was like, in its own time, it will be fixed. And he was like, but two things. He was like, God had to give you something to slow you down. That made me angry. I can remember being a kid and being very angry.
Mhm.
But then he said that he gave you that to slow you down because he has a story that you want, that he needs you to tell. But if you can't tell it, if you don't have the cleft. And to an 8-year-old, to a 9-year-old, I don't care about this story. This ain't a good story. I don't want to be the one to tell it.
Yes.
But as I got older, my friends will tell you my number one life motto now is I have to live the story. And that's what I've done. I have lived through it, so I can now tell the story to help others. So my dad was right, but I don't like that he was right. I don't like
that. But he was, and and you know what's funny? I commend him and your mother for making you know, like you said, that you were born. How did you say it at first? You were born with a difference, right? How did you say it at
They
first?
always said, I have a cleft. I have a cleft, but a cleft doesn't have
There you
me.
go. Right. And I love that. I love that for them telling
Yeah.
you that and letting you know that, sweetheart, you're perfect just the way you are. And you were meant to be born just the way you are. And so, because it all starts at home, you know, with how you're made to
It
feel with
does.
home. That's your safe place. And I implore other parents to teach their children, because it's okay to stare, but it's the way that you talk to somebody or interact. And I like when people just are upfront and polite. If you have a question, you can ask, but don't treat people that you feel look different than you in a negative way. And it starts with us as parents. Teach your kids to not bully and be rude, because we're all different in some type of way.
In some way.
You know,
That was my mom.
absolutely. And so I commend your parents for putting that strength in you from day one. From day one. And so what about relationships with, you know, romantic relationships? How did you feel about that? Did you ever, but you had already had confidence in you, and then you had Big Bertha. You know?
And that's the funny thing, because again, I always say if it wasn't for the outside world, that's that's what I realized my father actually meant when he said God had to give you something to slow you down. Audience, if y'all could see me, like, fool me, not to sound cocky, not to sound, but it is what it is.
There you go.
The girl is fine. But God did that. He was like, I'm gonna give you the face, I'm gonna give you the body, but you gotta take the cleft. I did not mean to sign a contract, but that's obviously the contract that I signed with him. But he gave that to me because he knew that I could carry it, and that's fine. So with relationship, again, because I had the backing of my parents, my father did pass away, but prior to that, they were married for 25 years. My father loved my mother to the point that to this day, her friends talk about how my father loved her.
That's what's up. Black
So
love.
you can't just be Black love. It was the epitome. Every month, she knew one Saturday out of that month, she never knew when, she was going to get breakfast in bed. When he died, she was like, I guess I got to learn how to make my own coffee. Just, he was a provider. And not her. So having that did encounter men who thought that, oh, well, she could fool you. That's not happening. In fact, I always tell this story, and I don't know where he is in life, but I'm pretty sure he has heard. I'm dating a guy, and we were together. Okay, we were together for 3 months.
Okay.
Together. Okay. For 3 months. I saw this man every day. Off of work, he 3 months in, that was interested, but I was like, well, I'm single, so technically I can go. But I was like, let me just check, because let me just see. So I happened to offhandedly be like, oh, so what are we? And he was like, very dramatic, was like, pulled me over to the couch and sat me down and sat in front of me and was washing his hands. And I'm like, well, what's going on? And he's like, I can't be with you. And I'm like, okay. So this was the moment where I was like, shut up, Iva. I know, to the audience, like, can you do that? I can. I shut up right then. And he just started looking at me. Like, he started looking at me, and and it clicked. Oh, okay, that's why you can't be with me. But I'm not gonna let you have that out. So I just look at him. He was like, I can't be with you because I can't handle the cleft. And I'm like, it didn't just get here. That was my initial response, because I was just like, it did not just get here. It's been here the whole time.
Exactly.
He was like, I know. And I was like, okay. Well, I got up, I got my stuff, and I walked to the door. And that was the funniest part, because he's like, you just gonna leave? Why am I staying?
Exactly. Because this cleft is not going anywhere.
The cleft is not going.
Okay,
right. And you, again, to the audience, God said, if you're gonna take this part, you got to take it all. You can't choose. You don't. That's not how this is. We are a package deal.
I love it.
And I walked out of his apartment, and the funniest thing is, he was like, well, I can walk you down and make sure you. No, I'm good. I'm good. But it's just moments like that that I think, because I didn't realize at the time, that took confidence to do. It took confidence to do.
Oh, yes.
And I was confident in that aspect. But when it came to my cleft, which is so funny, because the fact that that was the main thing that I was fighting over in that situation, I wasn't still confident. Like, Big Bertha was still loud. She wasn't that loud, but she was still very much present. But I can remember, I was, oh no, I'm not. So I have been blessed that I really have not had too many crazy relationships. I've had pretty successful relationships.
Right. Awesome. That's awesome because I mean that's important, and I wonder if it was really the cleft or him just using that as an excuse instead of just keeping it real.
He was using that as an excuse. He was using
Exactly, because you
yes.
met me with the cleft, so I can't even really see that was just a coward move.
Yeah, we had a conversation later, of course, because he was I need to explain myself, and I was like, you really don't, but if you feel the need to, sure. And he was like, he was just like, I was intimidated. And I was like, I know. I was like, but to me, that showed me everything that I needed to see about you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I wouldn't even want you if I didn't have the cleft at this point. I mean, so let that continue being your excuse because that's crazy. Now, I want to go back to the surgeries. When you had the surgeries, what did they repair? Like, I mean, how did you, like you said, you were born without the palate. How did they correct that? Do you have one now? Is it, how did that go?
So I do have a palate now, thankfully, although sometimes because the fact that your ear, nose, and throat are all connected, I still I have to be mindful of how I chew. I'll just say it like that to keep it cute. So that way it doesn't go down the wrong way and maybe come out my nose, which is really common for a lot of us in the cleft community. So I had my first surgery when I was about 3 to 6 months. They'll typically do the lip first because it's actually better to do it when the baby is young because it helps with healing. But the palate, you want to wait a little bit. So my big surgery would be when I was 10. I had my bone graft, and what that bone graft was is to get that flesh for my palate, because obviously you want to take your own flesh to put it back into you. I hate to put it in the same term, but kind of like how a BBL, how they'll take fat from somewhere else and put it somewhere else. Yep. Same thing.
Okay.
Same.
Yeah.
And so then I had that surgery, and then another surgery that I had that was a really major surgery was I was Kanye West. I had my mouth wired shut for like 3 months. That was really fun. That was really fun.
How old were you when you had that one?
I was in high school then. I was around 14, 15. I couldn't eat. So I would have to eat through a syringe. So you would, like, my mom, thank God for her, she would find different ways to take different things that she could make into smoothies, or what could she blend up, or all the things that you want. And so I have to take a syringe and suck it up and then like squirt it in.
Okay.
That was fun.
Yeah.
So then the reason why I had multiple surgeries, because I will admit in my case, I did not need to have all of those, but I can be honest, it was for my nose. It was for the rhinoplasty. Having multiple rhinoplasties because I was, multiple rhinoplasty. I was so consumed with trying to be perfect that, thankfully for my melanin, you can't really see my scarring.
I really can't.
Can't see that.
No.
But I always felt people focus on is your nose. And honestly, on anyone's face, your nose is such a distinctive figure. Like it's a distinctive part, because especially us in the community, we're like, I know that's a Johnson boy. Look at that nose. That's a Johnson.
Okay.
Like, that's the first thing. That's the first thing.
You are right about that.
Oh, he got either the forehead or the nose.
The forehead. You're right. Don't be talking about my big forehead. You're right.
No, but so this right here is the blue hairline. So that I just you know that this is the blue hairline. I got it. My nephew got it. My aunt, my nieces got it. But the nose, and so I was really trying to get the perfect nose.
Right.
Because I felt like if I had the perfect nose, that Big Bertha was in my ear, yapping away. And if I could get the perfect nose, then I could be perfect, or at least I could be who I saw myself on the inside. Okay. Who on this screen right now is who I always saw myself to be, but that back then they didn't match up. And I will admit that because of that, I had a Big Bertha in me. I was not nice. I was not kind. I was not nice to me or others. I wasn't.
Wow. Now, do you feel like that was a defense mechanism within yourself?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. I love to say, and that might sound weird, but I was a bully because I was bullying myself.
Okay.
And
That makes sense though.
you can only do to others what you do to yourself. Just like you can
Yep.
only people only do what you allow.
Yep.
It's the same thing. And so it was definitely a defense mechanism because it was a reverse defense mechanism,
Yeah.
actually. I just felt our big Bertha was telling me that you're shameful, you don't deserve, which is ironic, seeing as how I just said that with old dude, I was like, oh, I'm not taking that.
Yeah.
But at my core, I was like, that
I
don't
get it.
make sense. They don't grow together.
I get
But
it.
yeah.
That's amazing. I definitely understand that. Then that's funny that you mentioned Big Bertha to me. Is that okay, y'all? So she has this thing where she says to mourn her. You're
Mhm.
mourning who you used to be.
Yes.
Correct. Now, is that Big Bertha that you're mourning?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what it is I have Big Bertha as one person, and then I also have little Iva. And little Iva is that little girl who wanted to be this who I am today, but she didn't know how, and allowed for Big Bertha to come in and shut her down, right? Because she was like, well, it was almost like the victim side of having a cleft. Oftentimes, sometimes because you are a patient for so long, you often associate patient with sickly or weak.
Yeah. Yeah. I get
And
it.
I had put that on me, or I had put that on little Iva.
Right. Right.
So Big Bertha was able to take a control because little Iva was weakened. She couldn't stand up. I need for both of y'all to go. I thank you for your time. I thank you for your patience. You guys really do a great job. It is now time for the adults to take over. I can't believe that I'm now the adult, but hey, it is. And here we are.
I love that. I actually love that because I mean, if people are honest with their self, we all have that. You know, a lot
Yeah.
of us do. I know I did. You know, I had to finally let the little me who was hurt as a child go rest. You know, I got this now. Let me take over. But, you know, for a long time I lived with her inside of me, still trying to, take over the adult me until I started to heal myself. And once I started to do that, she could finally go to rest. So I completely understand and relate. And if people are being their authentic self, I know they also can relate.
Absolutely.
That is so amazing that you said that. When did you decide to what made you finally decide to let Big Bertha go rest, and little Iva to go rest? What was the tipping scale that made that come about?
So that's a great question, Sean, because I let Big Bertha go first.
Okay.
I'm not here for abuse. I'm just not here for
Right,
abuse.
right. Right.
So,
Gotta go,
so
big.
what happened was, you gotta go. So what happened was, I was coming upon 30, and for the listeners who are like, that ain't no big thing, it was for me. I don't know what it was, but I was very, very intentional about entering into 30 in a better headspace,
Right.
and just better, because I have always seen 30, your 20s, you get to do whatever you want to do, girl.
Mhm.
Have fun. But 30s, you an adult. In the eyes of everybody, you are an adult.
Oh yeah.
And I wanted to make sure that I entered that equipped and properly. And so part of that for me was really sitting down and getting very clear about, okay, what are the parts of me that I like, that I would like to carry on into 30? What are the parts of me that I don't like? And it seemed like everything that I did not like was attached to Big Bertha. So Big Bertha had to go. So I actively started working on releasing her. One of the craziest things, and I don't know if I would recommend this, but if you have mental fortitude, you can do it. I put myself in social confinement. So what that meant is, like, I got off of social media. I stopped hanging out with my friends for a period of time. And I would spend a lot of alone time, not just alone time, but alone time in silence.
I get it. I get it.
And
Silence. And that's big. A long time, not just a long time in silence.
And,
I completely get that.
and so what I would do is I would have Saturdays where I wouldn't do anything.
Right.
I didn't have to do anything, but all I had to do was sit in silence. And I had a journal that I would keep next to me, and I would just, whatever came to mind. And Sean, there were so many Saturdays where I might just be sitting there and I'd be fine 1 minute, maybe reading a magazine or something, and would start bawling because a thought or emotion came to me. And so I would write it, but then I would also tell Big Bertha, thank you for the lesson, even though. And so I kept doing that. I kept doing that. And so after the end of that, because I couldn't keep that up, so it was like maybe 2 months I did that, I would look and see, okay, this is all that I have. What is the opposite of that? And because another thing that had sparked it was part of me making sure that I went to 30 correctly, I went to therapy. And my therapist had a great exercise that I use now for my clients because it set the tone. She was like, because I was telling her about how I feel people perceive me and how I feel like I'm giving off, and it wasn't great things. She was like, okay, if you were to die tomorrow, what 3 words would you want people to say about you? She was like, if you were to take a poll, what are the 3 words that people will kind of put you in? And, we love labels. We love to label people. And I was like, okay. So I really went home. And the 3 words that came out were real, sophisticated, and joy.
Oh.
Those are the 3 words. Yeah, I didn't tell you that part, Sean. So Sean just got to.
Okay.
So those are the 3 words. And so after that, I defined what that meant to me. So what did it mean that they would say that I'm real? That meant that they knew whenever they got me, whenever they talked to me, they were going to get my authentic self. It was no longer a mask. I was no longer going to put on because Big Bertha would always tell me that I couldn't be my real self because they're not going to like me. They're not going to like the girl with the cleft. Right. So don't dim yourself down. And I was like, I don't think that's true. I'm funny and I'm smart. I can do something.
Right.
So I don't think that's true. So that was how I got to real. Sophisticated is, Sean, I have so many pictures of me as a little girl. I've always been just,
Miss
Prim and yeah. Okay. I've always been that. I can't hide that. I can't deny that. That is me. And even how I like to dress. I've always been my friends will tell you that if she ain't gonna do nothing else, she gonna dress.
No, that's
I might not say anything the whole time, but I'm gonna come out with an outfit. I'm gonna come out with
good though. Okay.
You never got to question that.
Because when you look good, you stand out regardless. I don't even have to talk.
And how I thought about that before was I felt like, okay, if I dress good enough or well enough, you won't be looking at my cleft.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now it is the cleft and the outfit bring people in, and I love that. And so the last part of it was joy. I wanted people to say that even if it was a bad moment, she made me feel good. She made me feel welcome. I enjoyed being in her space. It was a privilege to have had a conversation, even if it was for 5 minutes. I wanted that to be how people left me. Because I feel like if that's how you leave people, if they experience that enough, they're going to start to do that with other people too.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's very true.
So, and I just knew that I don't want to be the cause of more evil, more bad energy into this world. It's going to be there regardless. I don't have to add to it.
Okay. Listen, I always say that I'm trying to be on the side that's helping others. I'm all about reaching out. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but what I do have is experience. And so along with my experience, I'm willing to reach back to my own people and try to help them up. If you need to be pulled up, I'm right here. Now I'm all for the world, but I'm all about my people first because I feel like we really need each other.
Absolutely.
And then we'll go back for the rest, once we're together.
You save who you can save.
There you go. Yes, yes. And that's it. There you go. You save who you can save. And I love that. And I love that. And I love the name, especially knowing how you got to that name, what made you do it. And that's something that I even talk about to other people as far as how, if I ever was to die today, what
Mhm.
would somebody, without being fake, with being real, because people want to make you look good at a funeral.
You don't
I
think you
want
look
you,
the dead. They think
yes,
you're the
they
most
were the best.
horrible person, but you don't.
And people are nudging each other like they lie like crazy. I want people to get up about me and really speak the honest truth. And I want it to be, I'm not saying I'm all good, but I want the majority of it to be positive and loving. Like she was always there for me. She always had a positive word for me. She pulled me up when I was down in the dumps. So that's
Yeah.
I always talk about that. That's how I want to be looked at or talked about at my funeral. So I try to live my life that
Mm.
way. As if I died tomorrow, what would people say about you?
Well, exactly.
So I love that though, as far as pick 3 words that you want to be
They
remembered
were.
by. And I love that real sophisticated joy. I like that. And it definitely gave more in depth on how you came about your name.
Exactly.
Now, tell me tell me a little bit about, is it Clefcon? Tell everybody
Yes, it's
about
Clefcon.
Clefcon. Like, what is that all about?
So Clefcon is amazing. What Clefcon is, it is an opportunity. We have two. There is a virtual one and an in-person one, but basically all Clef, whether you are a Clef affected adult or parent of a Clef affected child, or even grown child, maybe sibling, auntie, cousin, but you are have a connection to Clef, we all come together and there are different sessions. There is sessions for the adults that geared toward dating or how to kind of navigate the world with the Clef, because one of the things to know is that once we turn 18, we are released from our Clef care team.
Okay.
And as you know, with insurance,
Uh,
most people are kicked off their insurance
yeah.
at the very latest 26.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you still might need both plastic surgery, but you also may need space in the like mental health, and that's not always readily available. Clefcon is a place to come together to work through those and do different workshops. Then we also do things for the parents, different workshops about navigating insurance or just social support with each other and having that time to come together. And it's really amazing. In fact, like one of the most meaningful ones, especially for me, was last year, Clefcon in Chicago. One of the sessions that was the first time. It was about 30 of us, but we were all Cleft affected adults. And we
Okay.
were the only ones in the room. Now, someone who's listening, who's not Cleft or craniofacial or does not have any type of difference, may not understand the magnitude of that. But if you're listening and maybe, let's say, you are an African American and you've never been in the room with any other African American, and this is the first time that you get to be in a room full, it's going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm seen. Even
Yeah.
if you're Caucasian and you happen to be, and this is the first time, whatever your thing is that makes you different, imagine that your whole entire life you hear
Yeah.
that there are others out there like you,
Yeah.
but you never seen them, you never interacted with them. And then all of a sudden you look around and there's 29 other people who, when
Exactly.
you say different things that you went through, they immediately get it. You don't have to go through this long jargon of explanation. It's just
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I said. That was what I was talking about earlier. That's one of them things, unless you're actually going through it, have been through it, have a family member, and even then, you still
yeah,
don't understand the magnitude as far as you actually going through it and being in a room with others that are experiencing some of the same things that you may be experiencing. So, I mean, I
exactly.
definitely get the depth of that and the magnitude of, like you said, whether it's 30 of us coming together, it's big for us. And so
That was
I
huge.
love that. And so it's held every year in different states.
It's held every year in different states. Yeah. So
Okay.
like this year, it's probably going to be in New York. Next year, it may be in Florida. Year after that, it just because what we try to do is also making sure that, as I said at the very beginning, 1 in 700 are born.
Mhm.
People may not realize it because people always like, you're the first person that I've met with the Cleft. And it's like, I might be the first person that is actually very vocal about it,
Yeah.
but 9 times out of 10, you probably have.
And it's funny, yes, because some of the people you named,
Mhm.
I don't know them, but I see these people. They're on
You
TV, and I
do.
would not have ever known that. Especially when you said Jesse Jackson, for instance,
Yeah,
he has the mustache. So you're right. I
you
just
never,
don't know.
you
I mean,
never,
1 in 700 again. That's a lot. So they're out there.
and that's been for years. That's been for years. So it's like, yes, you have the new babies, but there. I know a 71-year-old with a Cleft.
Wow.
So, and again, that was another thing that was really amazing because the modern medicine, the advancements compared to like then to now, to even when I was born to now, and being able to have that exchange,
That's awesome.
I can't put it into words.
Yeah, no, things are constantly evolving. So it gets better and better as time goes on and new doctors take over medicine, the world. I mean, rather, we're evolving. And so they're always finding new ways to fix or change things. So I think that that is awesome. And I love the fact that,
Mm-hmm.
an organization like Clefcon can come together and bring everybody together to let people know they're not alone and there are
Mm-hmm.
resources out here. And we're here to help each other in the community. So I think that's awesome. Now, with real sophisticated joy,
Yes.
what made you decide to take your strength
Mm-hmm.
and reach back to help others? What made you decide to do that?
Yeah. In 2019, there was a study done that 72% of Cleft affected adults will not do any type of public speaking, and that not just on a stage, but in their job or any type of power, leadership, using their voice role because of fear of how they're going to be perceived. So, as we talked about at the very beginning of, he gave me this because he knew I could carry it.
Right.
He knew I could carry it, and so
Oh,
one of my mother's many sayings, she would always say, "Too much is given, much is required."
yes,
So
so true.
it was not. It was great that I found my confidence. I found it, and I have it, and I have my real sophisticated joy, and I'm out here just flourishing and twirling in the wind. I would be, I would be disobedient if I did not go help someone else behind me.
Oh, I love that.
They could go twirl in the wind.
There you go.
Because as I mentioned, think about all of those remarkable people that I said have a cleft.
Right.
There are more that could be in this world that are known if maybe they were twirling in the wind. So I have to create that wind for them. I have to, and that's really, I'm blowing you up so you can go and fly off.
It's big. It's actually deep. I mean, because a lot of us, a lot of people, rather, I'm not one of them, a lot of people, they get to a point where they're okay. And then it's like, oh, to hell with everybody else. I'm good. But
Mm-mm.
there are a lot of people that need you to use that strength to help them get strong. And that's okay to help build somebody else up. They're not going to take your spot. They can't. You
They
are
can't.
who you are, so I mean, I commend you 100% for doing that because, like I just said, a lot of people aren't built like that. They're focused on self and nothing else. And so that's really, really deep for me. And I mean, we need so many more others like you out here doing stuff like that. So I commend you.
Yes,
Now,
my friends, clients, anyone who's been around, they will tell you, if you tell me something, I'm gonna be the first one to big you up. Like, and even if you aren't there yet, I believe now the one thing I am good at, yes, I'm a coach, I'm all these things. I'm also a manifester. I am a God, me and him, like, obviously we're close. If I say something, it's gonna come to pass. I have learned this, so I speak that over myself and people that are around me. So you have to. So
yep.
I do. I speak confidence over the Cleft community. I do.
I love it. I love it. I mean, that's so positive. And somebody else may, may not feel like it's a big deal, but I do because that's somebody downplaying how big it is what you're doing. So I'm not here to downplay it. I'm here to uplift it. And I
Thank
know
you.
you're going already. I already know you're going to keep going because there is no stopping you. You're going to keep twirling in the wind and bringing others and boosting them up so they can twirl too.
Absolutely. I know it sounds crazy, but it really
No, it
is.
doesn't. I like it. No, it doesn't. I get it. It sounds real good and it fits you.
Yeah.
It fits your personality. That's
Yeah.
what makes it so funny because it fits your personality. I'm
I'm
out
gonna have fun. I'm
here.
gonna have fun.
That's the joy part of you. That's the joy. I already know you're going to keep doing what you're doing, and I already know that you're destined for greatness. You're just going to keep growing and growing. I already can feel it in your spirit just from being on here with you. You
Thank,
know greatness when it's sitting before you.
thank
So,
you.
absolutely. Now, before we go, tell
Okay.
everybody all of your information, social media, how they can find you. If there are any people out there that need her, she's here, so tell
Yeah.
everybody how they can find you.
So hello everyone again. Let me formally hi. Thank you for listening, for getting this far, because people have lives, but I just want to say thank you again. But you can find me at www.realsophisticatedjoy.com. And I will say I will be having a new coaching class coming out in March. So you can go ahead. That is coming out. We're taking on some new clients. I'm finally ready to do that. I'm very intentional again, as you have heard me say this whole thing. I make sure that I'm able to dedicate adequate time for my clients. You can also find me on Instagram and TikTok at Real Sophisticated Joy. I'm there. If you see me there, interact with me. I will respond. I love it. You're gonna get the same that you get on here. And on TikTok, I do not dance. I might do a little two-step, but I'm hitting 35 plus. And we do
Okay, it's a two-step at that point. Hey, y'all,
the
I already know y'all can feel her spirit. Follow her, support her. She's a strong woman out here doing her thing. I'm going to continue to support her. You heard her just say she has a coaching class coming up in March. So hey, let's check it out, y'all, and go. Let's keep supporting our people, please. The one last question before I let you go.
Absolutely.
Will you promise to always spread peace and love in this world?
Absolutely.
I already know,
Absolutely.
and I appreciate it. I
Thank
appreciate
you,
you.
Mom. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. No, I thank you.
You know who made it.